The winner is Daniel J. Later!
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it. Oh, thank you so. I want to thank my mum, my dad, Jacob Truman, and you for clicking on this video. Hello and welcome to Take a Bite, the show where I, Daniel J. Layton, make some food and watch a film. This week, the nominations were announced for the 93rd Academy Awards. I'm actually filming this video before the nominations have been revealed, but I want this video to stay relevant, so let me just say I cannot believe that film that everyone is talking about was or was not nominated. What a great honour, or horrific snub. That should do it. But before I go any further, let me tell you that this week's video has a sponsor. And it's very on theme. This episode is brought to you by The Screen Test. The Screen Test is a new movie vodcast hosted by my darling friend and former lover Jack Howard, and I'm on this week's episode arguing that Chicago is the best picture winner of all time. But I'll talk more about that in a bit. Since we're Oscars themed, I thought for today's movie I'd pick a best picture winner that I've never seen. I've gone for Braveheart. And to eat, I'm going to be making shortbread biscuits and cranachan. Is it pronounced cranachan? Probably. Either way, it's all got a very Scottish flair. Ockeye the new, which I'm reliably informed means, ow, my eye, no! We've got blue for the saltire, and I'm wearing plaid, because I don't have any tartan, and nobody wants to see me in a kilt. Unless you do, and I'm not judging. First, let's make the shortbread biscuits. And I don't have a recipe for this one, because it's all in here. 3, 2, 1. So for every gram of caster sugar, you have 2 grams of butter and 3 grams of flour. 150 grams. There you go. What's this hand? So 150 grams of flour, 100 grams of butter, 50 grams of caster sugar. Now, if you have a food processor, you could do it in that, but mine broke at the start of lockdown and I haven't replaced it. Listen, the whole concept of award shows is pretty silly, but I love them. This whole season it's the World Cup for movies, you know what I mean? It's just fun to see the brackets and see who's gonna get there, and you get a big surprise when Brazil gets knocked out. Brazil in this case is Meryl Streep. This is making me quite happy. I think this is pretty much there. This is the consistency you're looking for, like breadcrumbs, sand, and I can't lie to you, I'd just eat that. In the tin, I like a relatively thick finger, sort of pat it all down to make sure it's there, and then give it a little prick. With a fork. Filth. Bam, 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 bam. Right, that'll do. And in the oven you go until I decide otherwise. I know one thing from Braveheart, and it's, you'll never take our freedom! Once again, I'm sorry to Scotland. Shall we have a little look? Let's get up IMDb. Braveheart, 1995. 2 hours and 58 minutes long. Can I give you one piece of advice? Edit. Right, from this poster, I would guess that Mel Gibson is on fire for the whole movie. Looking at it, this explains a lot about the presentation of Drew McIntyre in WWE. What's this little tagline? Every man dies, not every man really lives. You don't have to tell me twice, I've been sitting on the couch for 6 weeks. Feels like a film I should have seen. Oh my god, those smell so good. And it's starting to go golden on the outside, but like has a tiny bit of give. That's perfect. Sprinkle some sugar over the top, and I'm gonna take a knife and I'm going to cut it into the fingers that I would like it to be in the tin, because once it firms up it becomes harder to cut. An inch thick or thereabouts. In the tin, on a rack. I need a bigger kitchen. Thank you. Cranachan, 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 cranachan. The recipe I've picked out is by Felicity Cloak, who is a writer I really like. She calls it the perfect cranachan. So it's got a lot to live up to. So last year I did a sponsorship deal with an oat company, and as a result I have oats coming out the wazoo, so any excuse to use them is fine by me. She wants pinhead oatmeal, but I've got jumbo oats, and she'll just have to like it that way. And to those oats I'm adding a tablespoon of soft brown sugar. Heat a frying pan over a medium heat. Well, let me tell you something. I've got myself a new toy. It's a hot plate. I wanted to do like overhead cooking videos, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I'm not very like crafty. You might have... That goes in the pan to have a toast. You're very loud. On the telly they all seem so like serene and happy, and I'm like, nah! It says till the sugar is melted, but how am I supposed to tell? Probably can tell when it starts to smell burnt, which is now. Meanwhile, puree 175 grams of the raspberries until smooth. I can do that. Let's use the NutriBullet I bought when I was like, boy oh boy, I'm gonna get fit this week. And then I didn't. More noise. And it says that I can pass it through a sieve if I want to be fancy. And reader, I always want to be fancy. And I don't like seedy bits. Oh, and by the way, for those keeping score at home, this is civic, because I'm separating the liquid of this puree from the solid of the seeds. How much cream for your nerves? 500 mils. Ooh, sorry, it's such a nut. This is why I did the talking bit first. Then fold in the honey, and then 4 tablespoons of whiskey. Now, if I haven't encouraged Scottish independence enough today, I'm afraid it's bourbon. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. I'm sorry, I don't have any bells. If you're Scottish, I'll allow you to be cross with me, but if you're not Scottish, you would do the same thing and you know it. 4 tablespoons, are you kidding me? Fair enough. Doesn't look great now, but I imagine when I've finished folding. While I'm drunk. Oh, that's so good! Crumble the oatmeal and add 3/4 of it to the mixture and add the puree to give a ripple effect. So this is absolutely delightful. It's like overnight oats for people who are perennially hungover. I'll add a couple of raspberries in even though I don't like them because it says so. Yeah, does it for me. I'm gonna go and enjoy this with one of my shortbread biscuits and let me tell you about this week's sponsor. Oh my god. The Screen Test is a brand new movie vodcast. Video, podcast, vodcast. Clever. It lives on the Prime Video UK YouTube channel and it's hosted by my friend and ballroom dance partner Jack Howard. Each week, Jack sits alongside film critic Clarice Lockery and 1/3 of the cyber nerds Joe Akinwin. And for this week's episode, they're joined by little old me. I'm really bringing that average right down. The show pits 3 movies or TV shows from a certain genre against each other to decide which is the ultimate. We battle it out over the cast, the craft, the most memorable scenes, and the highest IMDb rating. Jack is the one who picks the winner, and if you think that will give you the friendship advantage, you don't know Jack. Can I just check? I might have missed the memo, but are we playing golf rules so the lowest score wins?
We aren't, but you can tell yourself that if it makes you feel better.
I will, thank you. This week, we're deciding which winner of the Best Picture Oscar is truly the bestest picture. I'm raising my jazz hands for Chicago.
Razzle, dazzle.
And I'm up against The Departed and Casablanca. I was facing a battle, I won't lie. I had so much fun on the show. You know I love gassing about movies and musicals, and what a great excuse to rewatch some absolute classics. And in case they're watching, I'd happily come back for another. The full episode is available to watch now on the Prime Video UK YouTube channel. Where's the link? It's in the description. And new episodes are out every Wednesday at 5 PM. They don't all have me in them, but they're still good. And it's also available to listen to as a podcast on Amazon Music or wherever you get your podcasts from. Now, I'd like to be alone with my dessert, please. I liked it. 3 hours is a long time, but I don't know what I'd cut out. I was surprised how much I liked it. To be honest with you, I went in thinking I'm going to be incredibly catty about this. Like I'm going to have like a glass of wine and I'm going to be like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. That's me being catty. But here's the thing. I love medieval shit. It's great. Why do you think I like Game of Thrones so much? This was Game of Thrones, but without the dragons, which does go against it. And speaking of dragons, fire, Mel Gibson did not spontaneously combust at any point during the film, which I think was a missed opportunity. There are things about Braveheart that are in our collective conscious, but no one talks about how grisly it is. I dug it. Oh my god, this film is brutal. And it starts relatively innocuous, like, okay, there's some hanging people, and he's like, I don't want to have a war with England, I actually just want to have a family and peace. And it's very romantic, there's a meet cute. There's a lot of symbolism involving a thistle. There is a gloriously romantic midnight wedding, and then a sex scene which was tasteful and tasty, which is difficult to achieve both. Would that we were all lit so beautifully during coitus. So yeah, it's all going quite romantic and chill, and I'm like, settling in for what this movie is going to be. And then she gets her throat slit, and the next thing you know, heads are getting bashed in and people are being impaled on things. And I read afterwards that apparently it was gonna be worse. Basically, the classification board was like, yeah, if you want to show literal disembowelment, then go right ahead. We won't let you have an audience, but as a result though, what they had to cut out and how they had to shoot these moments actually makes it a better film, I think. It's like a basic tenet of filmmaking, show, don't tell, you know? And they have managed to achieve a far greater emotional response from me by showing me what's inside, rather than what's inside. The brutality does get kind of funny at times. My favourite is when a guy is thrown out of a window. Followed only by the moment where Mel bursts into someone's bedroom on horseback and smashes his face in. And they show the whole thing, and then Mel has to jump out the side of the castle on a horse into a lake. This film is so camp. Speaking of Mel, apparently he didn't want to act in the film and his first choice was Brad Pitt. And I can't help but feel like that would have been the right call, because this is a brilliant performance, but William Wallace goes away as a child to study in Europe and then comes back. And in the space of what I think is supposed to be about 10 years, he's aged into a 40-year-old man. And I know it was different times and skincare wasn't what it is now, but there's mud everywhere, Mel. Whack it on once in a while, you know what I'm saying? This film was nominated for 10 Oscars and won 5, including Best Director, Best Picture, Best Cinematography. I wrote them down. Oh yeah, sound effects and makeup. Deserving of all of them, especially the cinematography, which is beautiful. And I have to say, I think about this regularly, especially when I watch this kind of older movie. There should be a more heavy rotation of this kind of classic. These films are on everyone's top 100 lists, but the experience of watching them at home is nowhere near the same as watching it on screen. I want to see those gorgeous Scotland vistas on that beautifully lit giant screen. Over the summer, I got to see Shawshank Redemption at the Pictures, and I'd never seen it before, and at the end of it, I was just overwhelmed with gratitude, A, for being back in a movie theatre, but B, for seeing a film how it was meant to be. If I had my way, and by my way, I mean money, I would like to open a repertory cinema that just shows almost exclusively that kind of classic. Or maybe we can convince our chains to do the same. Like a couple of screenings a week, like a film club for these classic movies that generations have heard about and maybe seen on their admittedly quite large televisions these days. But especially with this one, there's something about the epic grand scale of all of it built into the film that I wish I could experience huge. You know what I mean? Here's something that surprised me. "You'll never take our freedom" happens before the halfway point of the film, which was a game changer for me viewing it, because now that he said that, I'm like, oh, I don't know where this film is going from here. Because let's face it, it ain't historically accurate, so it's kind of anyone's guess. Also, Scotland is, oh no. The weather is being Scottish. Let us just sort of hope for the best and carry on. This isn't a critique of the film, but at about 2 hours, Disney Plus literally was like, do you want to watch something else? Like, you put the movie into the bottom corner and was like, hey, do you want to watch Pathfinder? And I'm like, sure, but there's about an hour left. What kind of algorithm research data point did they get that made you think that was acceptable, you know? Oh yeah, and I think at the 2 hour point, men were being set on fire, which pleased me. And I can't lie, even though I sat down on my couch with this attitude of, sure, I guess I'll watch Braveheart tonight, by the time William Wallace comes over the hill in full drag and gives this rousing speech which ends with, "You'll never take our freedom," I believed it. I was in. I was like, yeah, I'll fight with you. And then I remembered I'm English, and I was like, oh. And I think that kind of speaks to the power of this type of Best Picture winning movie. And Best Picture is an odd one, because for every Parasite we have a Crash. And the cultural importance and impact of your film isn't less because you don't have that little statue, because there was that year that Oliver won Best Picture and Space Odyssey wasn't nominated. We all make choices. But there is something about this kind of grand, epic scale, Oscar bait movie that are almost always reliably able to stand the test of time. And Braveheart absolutely does that. So in spite of a 3 hour running time, in spite of a swathe of historical inaccuracies, and despite the lack of the lead character bursting into flame, I really enjoyed the film, and now the sun's coming out. Thank God for that. Now I'm bursting into flame. Down you get. That'll do. You can't even see the blue anymore. Poor Scotland. So yeah, on reflection, I had a great time, and I would give Braveheart a clap. By the way, I have settled on my personal film rating system, and here it is. I think quite insightful, and a helpful guide to what you might want to watch next. Thank you so much to the Screen Test for sponsoring this video, and thank you so much to you for watching. You can subscribe, you can like, you can comment, you can do a lot of things. It's your choice, because, lest we forget, they can take our annotations, but they'll never take our freedom! I'm gonna go drape myself in a bedsheet and shout that on the comment.